Greetings, folks. Welcome to the Great Scott Actors Roundtable. I'm the Great Scott, also known as Scott Galbraith, and I want to welcome you to our Christmas in July edition. Any of you who have ever watched my YouTube channel or seen many of the projects that I participated in know that I am plugged into a lot of areas of entertainment. I do magic, I do singing telegrams, and a lot of people also know that I play Santa Claus at Christmas time as well as year-round with my friends Ben and Steven. We do a show called The Holiday Mixers, where Steven plays a leprechaun and Ben plays Uncle Sam. It's a lot of fun. However, if any of you have ever seen my act and thought that I was a good Santa, let me just tell you, you haven't seen anything yet. Because Santa is just one of the many things in my entertainment toolbox. There's a whole group of other guys who dedicate their entire craft to imitating and bringing the jolly gentleman from the North Pole to life. And here on the last day of July, we are doing our Christmas in July edition, as I'm going to introduce you to some gentlemen who have actually dedicated their lives to portraying Santa at Christmas time and keeping the magic alive for kids. We have three Santa Clauses here today. I'm going to introduce you to them one at a time. First of all, we have a gentleman who is coming to us from North Attleboro. His name is Howie Bristol, and he goes by Santa Howie. Hello, Santa. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here.
Nice to have you here. Thank you for joining us. And you are in the same group that I was in, the New England Santa Society for the Massachusetts and Rhode Island area. Is that correct? Or is that Massachusetts and New Hampshire?
The New England Santa group, which was basically put together by our other Santa, Dan, has Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. And you're absolutely correct.
Yes. And speaking of that other Santa, we have a Santa coming to us from Manchester, New Hampshire. His name is Dan Greenleaf, and as Santa Howie just pointed out, he put together the Santa group that Howard and I have both been in. Please say hello to Santa Dan. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks very much. And Howie, you forgot one of our states, Vermont. We actually have one member from Vermont in the New England Santa Society. So
excellent.
We finally have all the states covered.
Perfect.
All the New England states.
I am in New Hampshire and have been doing Santa for about 15 years. And so I could meet other Santas, I helped organize the New England Santa Society.
Which is a great group, and I appreciate you letting one young guy without a beard into the group. That was very nice of you all. And lastly, we have a Santa coming to us all the way from Illinois. Please say hello to a gentleman who I connected with on Facebook after becoming part of the New England Santa Society, Santa Chris. How are you doing, sir?
Most excellent. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here. We know that you are on a time crunch. For those of you watching, Santa Chris might have to, we might either have to end this early or he might have to cut out, and Dan, Howie, and I can continue. But anyway, gentlemen, I want to thank you for being here today to be part of this Actors Roundtable, focusing on people who have dedicated their lives to playing Santa. Now, I have a list of questions here that I would like to ask you guys, and like I said, we'll go around in a roundtable format and answer them. But I was wondering if anybody knew this. Exactly how because I've noticed this all over Facebook and at the New England Santa Society when I've attended. How did the whole thing start about going by Santa plus your real first name? Because it could have just as easily been your real first name with Claus. Does anybody know who established that rule? Because I've noticed that it's something that kind of goes across all Santa groups.
No idea.
No idea? Nobody has a clue, folks. Okay.
I think it's probably just that you introduce yourself by your first name. I'm Dan, and so people would just start calling you Santa Dan, or that seemed to be the transition. I mean, a lot of people do set up an account or set up their name as Santa Howie or Santa Dan, Santa Chris, but I think there's no real rule. It just kind of fell into use that way.
It's kind of an accidental tradition, if you will.
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good explanation right there. I must say that one of the things that I was a little bit flabbergasted by when I first started coming to the dinners. I know they're all virtual now, but when I first started coming to the dinners is that you guys would talk about Santa camp and Santa seminars and stuff. And as a magician, there are seminars and things like that. It never dawned on me that there was a whole there was a whole culture of doing that as well. Now, I've never had the privilege of attending Santa camps, but if you guys could just maybe go around real quick, what kind of things happen at Santa camps?
I'll tell you what. I'm going to let Dan speak to the Santa camp because that's his brainchild. And after he explains that, I'll be happy to do iBirds, which is the International Brotherhood of Real Bearded Santas. And then Chris, whenever you want to jump in, please feel free.
Fair enough.
Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I think as a lot of us get into being Santa, just some friend asks you to do it or you look the part. And so I think most of us, once we start doing it, realize there's so much to learn, there's so much to make us better Santas. And so there are Santa schools out there. In fact, I think now we're really in a golden age of Santa schools. There's a lot going around doing traveling shows. There's still some big ones that are on location. And we ended up sponsored one of the teachers at one point to come and do some workshop, to do a Santa school for us. And a lot of us thought, we have a really good source of information and expertise within our group. I mean, we have people who've been doing Santa for 25, 35 years. And so we decided to go ahead and put together our own Santa course. And a number of us got together and we each sort of took a different part and created a program. And we decided to do it at a conference facility that's at a camp. So one of our attendees came up with the name Santa Camp because he was all excited that he was going to go to Santa Camp. And we thought, that's a good name. So it started out as educational. We did a comprehensive Santa course, and it's taught by a number of members. And how he is going to be coming. But then we also offer an advanced course of some kind, and it rotates through. This year happens to be on technology for Santa. And in light of our conditions right now with who knows what we'll be doing this season, a big part of that is going to be on virtual visits. And then we also have a program for Mrs. Claus and the Helpers. So weekend long event, it starts Friday afternoon, goes through Sunday, and we do, most of it is educational. We do a lot of courses, workshop kinds of things, but then we have some fun too. We're at camp, so we have a campfire one night, and we eat in the dining hall and all the rest of it. So this is our 4th year doing Santa Camp, and everybody, even though we're a New England group, whoever's interested is welcome to come. We have a lot of new Santas who come in who've never done it before. And the nice thing is, because we're a group, we're able to help each other and kind of mentor a lot of the new folks who come in, connect up there, and now have a mentor who can help them right along through it. But I think for anybody who's interested in being Santa or Mrs. Claus or even an elf, getting into some kind of course is really helpful because it has special challenges and also a lot of responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were saying, Howie, that there's a group of real bearded Santas. What were you going to touch on, did you say?
Well, there's our group, as Dan pointed out, covers New England. The international IBIR, we call it IBIR, the International Brotherhood of Real Bearded Santas, is an international group. Primarily, it's in the United States. I happen to be the regional rep for New England, and we have around 2,500 Santas with real beards, and we cover the gamut from basically beginners to people like myself that have over 30 years, sitting in the chair. One of the things Dan touched on is no matter if you've only been a Santa for or you're just starting out, or you've been there for 30 years, you will always walk away from one of these classes learning something. And like Dan said, sometimes as mentors, we learn something just talking to the people in the class. iBurbs is sort of a foundation. Our group is part of iBurbs. That's where we are able to get our multi-million-dollar liability insurance, which we all carry, our national Corey checks, which we all have done, and we can really get ideas from people in other parts of the United States who are experiencing something similar or not. So it's great. I mean, people have no idea the network that Santas have.
Right. Yeah. I once told somebody you could almost do a movie with people from the Santa Society where you basically portray that Santa is actually an organization passing itself off as one person. I thought that would be a funny idea. And I didn't even know that something like this existed at the time. But anyway, Chris, did you have something that I wanted to give you a turn here? Things that you've been a part of.
I'm also a member of iBurbs. I'm also one of the newer Santas. This will be my 4th year as a real bearded and about my 6th year as Santa. But yeah, for where I'm at, I have not been able to attend any of the schools. Every one of them looks phenomenal, and everybody I've talked with that has attended, no matter if it's the national schools or the local traveling ones, everybody's amazed at how much is learned and how much is taught. But also locally, we have Illinois Santas that I'm a member of. We have a few meetings a year where we gather for a lunch and everybody talks and you network. You've got Northern Illinois Santas, you've got Gateway Santas out of St. Louis, and you've got Hoosier Santas out of Indiana. All of them, if somebody's thinking about getting into being a Santa and representing them, at least find a local group for some support, because you're always going to have questions and you're going to have weird things that occur during visits.
Good point.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the funny thing is, there have been times that I've told people that there are Santa groups like this, and they think I'm joking. They think, and of course, they make all the kind of Santa jokes that you can. I've always thought that some of the best things for kids, or the best things that some regular people consider ridiculous, are the stuff that people take completely seriously in their approach to it. Like, one of the reasons why I am not a bearded Santa, 2 reasons. Number one, I can't grow a beard like you guys have. I have spots in my face where it doesn't come in. Second, one of the other characters I'm occasionally called upon to play is Batman, and he doesn't have a beard of it. You can't be Batman with a beard. But I did not put on the cowl until I had been a avid fan of the Adam West Show, till I knew all the movies that were coming. Because kids ask you weird questions, and kids sometimes know more about characters than you do. And you have to be ready to make sure that you know the answer if you run into that. So I do the approach with whatever character I'm playing. Now, I do have a couple questions here that I wanted to ask you guys. Like I said, I'll ask the question. We'll go around one at a time. Yes, Howard.
Could I just bring up one quick point?
Yes.
To just what you were saying, a lot of people, when they ask Bonnie and I, we say we're going to a Santa convention or a Santa camp, or say, well, what do you learn there? I mean, what do? Teach you how to say ho, ho, ho? And then I really set them back, because I say to them, no. At the bigger ones like iBurbs, we have classes on dealing with mentally challenged children, and what are the things you should be aware of when a young child with Down syndrome comes in and cannot do that will make them comfortable and uncomfortable. We deal with first aid procedures, all kinds of choking procedures. We deal with just trying to think of some of the other things, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, there are a lot of bread and butter practical classes in these big meetings that are absolutely invaluable.
Mm-hmm. You were mentioning about first aid. I think I told you guys this once. I have a friend named Gabe, and his mom, they're both slightly vertically challenged. They're both below 5 feet tall, and they get a lot of work as elves and leprechauns at St. Patrick's Day, because they both like to act. But the interesting thing is that Gabe's day job is he's an EMT. So he's actually a medical, he can actually be you were talking about first aid. He actually is one of the reasons why he's sought after Elf is because you have a medic right there in case something goes wrong. Anyway, I have some questions here. One thing that I wanted you all to mainly tell our viewing audience here is that this is a job or a calling, whatever you want to call it, that I don't think too many people are saying when they're a little child, I want to be Santa when I grow up. So there's got to be a story as to how does one get into this in the first place. So I was hoping you would each tell our viewing audience your Santa story. What led to you dedicating your craft to being Santa?
If you'd like, I can start.
Okay.
Like I say, probably 30 years ago, we belonged to an organization, and they always had a gentleman do Santa for the kids, and then they had one of the waitresses who, was a big. She tried to play it, saw right through that. So the next year, I said, well, and I've always had a beard, and it was probably pretty white then. So, Howie, how about you? So, went down, rented the fleas were free. There was no extra charge. I showed up, and I came out, and I didn't say ho 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 because I'd never done it. And that there's a backstory to that. Well, anyway, I kind of got around it and got going, and then I realized it's the joy you bring to people, the younger, the older, whatever, and that's how it started. And shortly after that, I got my first starter suit. I really practiced, and I got confident enough to really belt out a ho ho ho, and as they say, the rest is history.
Chris, why don't you go next?
Okay. I started a few years ago. I, again, had a beard. It was pretty much salt and pepper. What you see now is what it normally is. And our family had gone several years without hiring the local Santa. And then because we didn't have any young children in the family, then we realized we needed a Santa. And the gentleman that, from our photos in the family, we'd had him as Santa for well over 40 years, had passed away on us. So then I was kind of volunteered. So again, if you're going to do it, I do the full bleaching, burns and all. I get the eyebrows because they are really dark. But yeah, it's because the Santa we had passed away. And then again, once you get into it, everybody, whether they're younger children that are excited for you to be there, or the older grandma or grandpa that are starting to shed a tear because they remember their childhood, you start getting into it more.
Dan?
So my father actually was Santa when I was a kid for the church. He was tiny, skinny guy and did actually put a pillow in. And I was old enough that I kind of knew what was going on. And then my uncle also, who was a Santa shape, he also did it a little bit. So as a kid, I knew people did Santa, but I had no inkling of it as I got older. I was working at a ski area, and the Christmas Eve day I came in, or just before Christmas Eve, and my boss said, "Hey, they're looking for somebody to go out and ski as Santa. How about you? You're old and you're fat." And I did have a beard, but it was dark. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So I borrowed a suit from an organization I was involved with, and it was a cheap suit, and it had the real beard and stuff. And I went out and skied around and had a good time, and I ended up doing the ski area's employee party. And the next year I did the same event and did a couple others. And then it was quite a few years went by, and I hadn't thought much about it. And I was in a position where I was kind of doing, a friend of mine said, "Hey, we're doing the teacher's Christmas party. Why don't you come in?" And I thought, okay, I'll have to try. That's when I really started taking it seriously. That first year, I set up a website and I started marketing myself, and probably did, I don't know, 10, 12 events. And then just every year I just got out there, and now I'm at a where probably close to 100 events a year. And I got to the point where my schedule was full, but I was still getting a lot of calls. And because I was involved with our organization, so I started actually booking and giving work to other members of our group, so that, we're my company now, we're doing events. And then we also staff Bass Pro Shop here in New England. We do a couple of other places with the New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and then a number of other groups that we serve as well. So, but probably the thing that really changed my life in terms of Santa was going to the iBurbs convention in 2012 in Santa, doing Santa myself for probably 3 years, and had never another Santa. I mean, I didn't know any Santas in this area. I hadn't met any, and there was no local groups at that time. So I went online and I found this organization and thought, I'm going to the convention, and it was, it was definitely one of those eye-opening things where you walk in and realize, holy cow, this is a movement. This is a totally different type of thing than you thought. And I learned so much at it and gained so much knowledge that it kind of changed the way I did Santa somewhat. And I think part of it too is, I think people think of us as actors, that we're, pretending to be Santa. But I think for most of us, we're not impersonating Santa, we're personifying Santa. And that's the important difference, that our role is to really personify Santa so that the children think that they're seeing the real Santa. And, my goal is always, when a child asks me if I'm the real one, I'll always say, well, what do you think? And I might say, so what would make me the real Santa? And, my goal is almost always to have them walk away and turn to their parents and say, he's the real one. Because that's what that's our responsibility. We want to be that child's real Santa. And I always want to yell at the parents who say, oh no, they're just helpers. It's like, no, let your child believe he or she is seeing the real Santa.
Right. Yeah, that helpers thing does spread around. That actually, I was looking at some of the questions I had written down here, and something you said makes me think that there's a good segue into the next one. Obviously, like I call this the Actors Roundtable. Obviously, like I was talking about playing Batman earlier, I do Batman as kind of a combination of the Adam West version of Batman and the animated series one from the 90s. Obviously, you don't want to just copy somebody that you've seen before. You kind of want to make the character your own. So I thought I would ask you guys, what do you each person, is there something each of you do that is unique to your version of Santa only? Is there something you do to try to make yours unique? I guess not.
Well, no. From my standpoint, I try to make it so that I'm up to date as much as I can with pop culture. So when the children and the adults start telling me what they want for Christmas, I at least try to have a one-liner or something to say in response to ask another question about it. If a child's telling me a very specific video game, then usually I try to have something about, well, you got to listen to mom and dad on your playtime. And then usually dad will try to be a wiseacre and tell me something about some fancy high-end motorcycle. Or I try to know enough to recognize they're describing a motorcycle and make sure they know they've got to wear their helmet. And so I try to have a few one-liners, not try to get rude or anything, but just try to keep the conversation so they know I'm paying attention and not just nodding, saying I'll do what I can or something like that.
Right. Howie, Dan?
One trick I've used at different places is when the parents always say, well, tell Santa what you want for Christmas. And when they bring up something like a few years ago, it was the Nintendo Switch. That's an expensive toy.
Right.
And I would then repeat it out loud and make sure I made eye contact with the parent and say, oh, you'd like a Switch, a Nintendo Switch? And right away, the parents would go, yes, but that gave me my next thing. You know, if they went yes, I'd say, I'll work on it. I'll call the elves right now. If they said no, I'll say, well, you know, the elves don't make electronic toys, so let me think about that, but that's something I probably can't handle. So I give them a reason from me, not the parents, to say, well, that's why I didn't get it or whatever.
How about you, Dan?
Well, I think one of the interesting things is when we start being Santa, we assume there's a cookie cutter Santa, that, you know, there's certain things you're supposed to say or ways you're supposed to do things. But as you do it a while, you realize that's not it at all. That we're not trying to fit a mold. We're trying to create an experience and create a character that the kids can believe in. And I tend to be kind of sort of along the lines probably of Chris, where I like to joke with the kids. A lot of times I'll tease them or not tease them, but give them a hard time. You know, a child who come up and say, what's my name? I mean, I have a whole routine that I now go through. That's, what, you forgot your name? How could you forget your name? And I'll go, let me look in the back of your shirt. Maybe your mother wrote your name in there. Okay. Oh, your name's Fruit of the Loom? That's an interesting name. And I'll get, and to the point where the kids get so frustrated and laughing and everything that, and I'll do that. Like Howie says, you get those requests for gifts that are not necessarily on the list of toys they're going to get, and especially with electronics. But you get kids, I want a cell phone, and I'll say, oh, okay, well, who's going to pay for the minutes? And a lot of times they look at you and like, what are you talking about? Well, a cell phone's not any good unless you have service, and you have to pay for that every month. And they'll say, well, my mother will. And it's like, does she know that? And I just as you meet with kids and you get used to it, there's different things that you come up with. I mean, electronics, I always kind of blame the elves. Oh, have you ever seen how tiny those pieces are in an iPad or a computer? They're tiny, and I have to use my littlest elves. They're about this tall. And you know how long it takes for them to walk from one side of that laptop to the other carrying the pieces? And it takes and so I kind of go into these stories, or I have these things that I'll tell, but I always try to keep it upbeat and funny. And if I can have a child go away laughing and chuckling, that's what I want to do. And you certainly don't always have that opportunity, because we do have those situations where you're dealing with serious situations. But I do the Dana-Farber Children's Hospital, and you have kids in there who are terminal. I mean, you have kids who are very sick. But even there, I really try to just treat them like other kids, and I'll joke with them. I mean, I always remember a case of, it was an older, I think he was 19 at that point, but had been in there a while. And before went in to see him, I had to wait because he was having death counseling. I mean, he was not going to be around much longer. And we went in and I chatted with him, and he happened to have a bunch of posters for the local sports teams on the wall, and said, "Oh, so you're a Red Sox fan?" I said, "Yeah." But I said, "Oh, I like the Red Sox a lot too." And he said, "Well, how can you like the Red Sox? You shouldn't have favorites." And I explained to him that, when I'm here in Boston, I'm a fan of the Red Sox and the Bruins. When I'm in New York, I'm a fan of the Mets and the Rangers and Knicks, although I can't be a fan of the Yankees. I'm sorry. I have to draw the line somewhere. So, it was, to me, again, it's giving those kids an escape from the day-to-day medical treatments and what they're facing. And I think that's what we're really about, is making kids happy, and not just kids, adults too.
Oh, yes.
I mean, we run into adults all the time. So those of us with real beards, I mean, I think we see it just walking down the street. Somebody will look up and you see him come up with a little smile because you look like Santa.
It's you.
Yeah. And to me, those are the kinds of things that just, that's what I'm there for, is to make people happy.
Yes. How are we doing for time for you, Chris?
I got about 15 minutes, sir.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Yeah, this
Yep,
is the second time I've done a round table where somebody has to run off for an appointment, so I just want to make sure. The funny thing is, with some of the stories that you guys are telling, you're actually answering half these questions before I ask them, which is great. But there's one question here that I have not asked that one of the reasons why I checked with you, Chris, is because I wanted to make sure we got to this. You've all been playing Santa for a number of years, as you all just pointed out. You can't tell me that in all that time there isn't some funny situation that happens that might stick out in your mind. So I was hoping that maybe one of you, if you have to think for a second, it's okay. Do any of you have a funny Santa story that you could share? Like something that happened that was kind of interesting while you were playing Santa?
Well, while Chris is thinking, I will answer this. I have never had a child pee on me. And that is one of the first questions people will say. How many children have peed on your lap? And I have never had one. And I would say probably thousands of children on my lap.
Yep.
Last year, I did have a puppy pee on my foot, though.
Oh.
I have had that.
All right.
I've been thrown up on once by a baby. While they were doing the family photo and everybody was lining up, an uncle was holding the young child and kept bouncing him, patting him on the butt, keeping him content. He might have been 6 or 8 months old. And right as everybody lined up and they handed me the child to take the photo, I could hear the gurgle and it came up. Luckily, I had a spare suit that I brought with me, so I ran my suit to the back, hosed everything off as best I could, swapped suits, come back out, and the elves had to clean up what was on the floor, and we proceeded as business as usual. We were able to get it done, but that warm, thick feeling is really disturbing.
Dan, I'm blessed. I have never had an infant or whatever pee on me, and for Chris, never had one throw up. I mean, I am knock on wood. As far as questions go, I think the one question that stumped me years ago was, and like both of my brothers here, we all develop a quick retort for questions. I had a little girl come up to me one time and say, "Santa, how old are you?" That's a good question. I'm going to have to get back to you on that when I check with Mrs. Claus. I was dumbfounded. My brain locked up, the gears froze. I could not for the life of me come up with any kind of an answer. And the more I tried, the worse it got. So
I think you get those funny questions from kids those are probably the funniest situations. But I had you know, you're Santa, so they're there to talk to you, and they're going to tell you all kinds of things. And I had a little girl one day. I was working Bass Pro one night, and this family comes in. It was a woman and an older guy who I think was the grandfather, and this little girl. She was probably 5, maybe 6, and she came up, and we're talking for a little while, and I don't remember what I asked her, but all of a sudden she started giving me her life story and telling me, you know, well, we're not, you know, it might have been something about a present, and well, I don't expect to get too much now because Mom lost her job, and now we're living at Grandpa's house because Mom and Dad couldn't get along and they got divorced, and Mom is trying to find a new boyfriend. I mean, this kid went on for like 15 minutes just telling me all this personal stuff, and finally the mother came over and said, okay, that's enough. And you know, and I think the mother said something like, she has a tendency to share a little too much. And it was just, and as Santa, you just kind of sit there and, you know, yeah, okay, shake your head and nod and maybe ask a question once in a while or try to get them off topic. But that was one of the funniest ones. But yeah, the kids come out with stuff that just makes you laugh.
Sure does.
Do you think that we will? This is a question that I thought of asking here. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to attend the Nest meeting that addressed this. But do you guys think, assuming that some things will still be as they are now in December, do you think we're going to change? Do you think we're going to see some changes in the way Santa is done this year, or we're going to see less requests for Santa this year?
I think it'll be video chatting, and I think there'll be a lot of, if Santa is at a Bass Pro or a mall, I think it's going to be some type of social distancing where Santa is 6 feet away, maybe in a toy shop area, and then the children or family could come up and sit on a bench so the camera lines up to look like Santa's right there with them or something. But if it stays like it is, I think it'll definitely be different.
Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on that, Dan or Howie?
Well, as I mentioned, I book a lot of events, and we do Bass Pro, and I think a lot of people have just decided they're not going to go out and do in-person visits. They're just going to do virtual stuff, do, you know, Santa chats online. But I think there's still a lot of people who are going to want to visit Santa in one way or another. And the thing that our group, we had a series of 5 meetings where, you know, we had 35, 40 Santas coming up with ideas on how to deal with different situations. We kind of based it on the type of event. So it was like, okay, if we're doing a home visit, what are the issues? Well, certainly contact, you know, social distancing, whether you're going to wear masks or not, you know, all those issues that people are going to be concerned with. So certainly we're going to have to change the way we do Santa. I don't think, unless, you know, there's some miracle cure in the next couple of months, we're not going to be able to do Santa like we usually do, with a child sitting on your lap and giving hugs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. One advantage I have with the designer beard that I have is that the inside is actually a mask that covers my whole face. Yeah. So my beard actually is a mask. Yeah. So that's one advantage. Not to brag here, but that's one little advantage I have over the bearded Santa.
So I mean, we had a lot of good ideas, but we're investigating all kinds of alternatives. I just got an order the other day with masks that's clear. You can actually see the mouth and everything. I have a tent that you can get into that'll seal you in. So there may be events like meet and greets where Santa's in his igloo. It's very, very hot here, and I'm used to the cold. So I have to have this refrigerated igloo to stay comfortable, you know, and so that's
one thing that happened after things started. Was I actually started working for a company called Sugar Plum Parties, and they started doing what are called drive-by parties. It's essentially a DJ that has his whole sound system in his trunk that goes in the front yard, and all the characters that we dress up as, we stay outside, we stay in the front yard. And right now business is booming, but that's because it's summer. These are going to go away once it starts snowing, unfortunately. there's not going to be any front yard, but there's not going to be any front yard parties anymore when it's cold weather. So, I think because we're getting down to the end here, the last question that I wanted to ask you guys is and some of you kind of alluded to this. What do you hope that when you do a Santa visit, whether it's virtual or in person, what do you hope that your customers or recipients or whatever you want to call them get out of your visit as Santa?
Well, I think it's I'll speak to that. I think there's a couple of different answers relating to the different age groups. And I'm going to start with nursing homes. Mrs. Claus and I do a number of charitable events at nursing homes. And the look on, because they're primarily women, the look on these women's faces when we come in is priceless, because it brings them back to when they were children. You know, they're not in a nursing home or a convalescent anymore. They're 5 years old, and Santa has come to see them. And I'll tell you that I mean, it makes us feel good, and it makes those folks feel good. And if they have their children there or whatever, I mean, everybody just thoroughly enjoys it. The younger kids, they're fun, but their span of attention, is very limited. And unless you can be now with two people, you can bounce it back and forth. The ones that are skittish, Mrs. Claus can take them aside for a few minutes and whatever. But no matter what you do, I mean, the young kids, it's you have them for a few minutes at best. They get that present, they're off. I think the parents enjoy it more because they like seeing the look on their little children's faces.
Right.
The children will basically forget it in 15 minutes, but with pictures and thoughts, the parents can relive that time and time again. That's my thought.
Mm-hmm. Dan, Chris?
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, okay. Like with home visits and stuff, I like it when I can do a home visit, especially if someone has been severely ill. The older grandmother, grandfather, they got to see another Christmas. It feels good to be a part of it. There's a few of those visits I feel great about, but then you start getting, you can't get teary-eyed. Santa can't get emotional, and there's a few times where it gets pretty rough. But then, like Santa Howie said, with the little children, again, 5-10 minutes, and unless there's a bunch of children or a bunch of adults to talk with for a home visit, that's about their attention span. Now, the adults, of course, you're going to get reminiscing of what something they got back in 1963 or something like that, and it's a lot of fun. But then also, if you stay too long, then the adults want to start asking non-Santa questions about your appearance. So you got to pay attention to the time. But yeah, as long as you can keep everybody excited and get the happiness and the emotion up, it's a good time.
Well, I think for me, what I'm hoping for from the client is that they say, okay, same time next year, because that tells you that you did a good job. And and there are those times where you can't do it and they will move their time because they want you, not somebody else. But I try to go in and really provide service, not just for the kids, but also to entertain the adults as well. I mean, I love a party where the adults are all gathered around and listening. And I mean, home parties, I try to do a variety of things. Any event, I'm trying to do different things for entertainment so that it's more than just the child sitting on your lap and talking to you and getting a photo. That, I do some magic. I tell stories or answer questions. I've kind of created stories that I can tell. But we do a home visit that might last 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the size of the crowd. But in most cases, I try to keep those children involved. And so that even when I'm talking to one, I'm still kind of making jokes, or a child might ask me, well, like we were talking about electronics, might say, oh, I want an iPhone, or, I'll go through the whole thing about, whoa, who's going to pay for it, and blah, blah, blah. And I might even say to, some other child, see, everybody thinks it's all free, that you just get your phone and it's free, and so and if I can get the parents laughing too, that's, to me, you're an entertainer is a big part of what you're doing in those kind of settings. So finding all these alternatives you can use to do it. And I know, Scott, you've got all kinds of things you do when you're
it took me about 2 seconds. I was a magician long before I was doing Santa, and it didn't take too long for me to work some of my Christmas magic tricks into the act. You guys were talking about, you have to be witty sometimes with adults, like Chris, you were talking about when someone says they want a motorcycle or whatever. One of my favorite witty things to say to grown-ups, because this happens more often than you can count, is I will do a trick, and then usually a mom or a dad will look right at their child and go, wow, I didn't know Santa could do magic, did you? And I'm like, really? You've been telling your child I can make reindeer fly their whole life, but this card trick amazes you.
Yeah. And with the magic stuff, I actually incorporated into the whole Santa legend. I mean, I do some foam ball stuff. So you got this red ball that's that big.
Oh yeah, I got one of those.
There are times where I'll, if a child is not, doesn't want to come over and talk to me or something, I might drop it on the floor, and they'll pick it up and bring it over, and I'll say, you know what that is? That's Rudolph's nose. It's just like, his nose glows, but it's like a light bulb. It burns out after a while. And you know what this is? This becomes magic dust. This is the magic powder that helps us fly. It's full of holiday spirit. And then I'll do a trick where they now make more for me. And so, I try to use the magic trick as a tie-in to the whole Santa spirit and the holidays and the traditions and stuff.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I'm amazed that more magicians don't masquerade as Santa. It's such an easy tradition. It was what led to my show, The Holiday Mixers. Incidentally, me and my guys, we're actually doing, thank goodness we made it to phase 3. We're actually doing what was supposed to be a Christmas in July show this Sunday at an RV camp down on the Cape. And it's supposed to be 81 degrees, and I'm wearing the suit. So that's going to be that's going to be interesting to say.
You need your summer Santa outfit. You know? That's what this is. You're.
Yes. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you. Did any of you have anything you wanted to close with before we end this wonderful roundtable?
One thing that just to take a second, and it kind of answers another question about why we do it. This is an expensive proposition. You can get a suit for $125. You can spend well over $1,500. Ancillary stuff, real leather boots. I mean, it can get expensive. But when you get into it, the passion, it's like people who collect coins or collect Fabergé eggs or something. We're spending the money because it's part of us. It's a passion.
Right.
We want to do it right. We really want to represent ourselves as the best Santa at that given time. And I mean, just a little side comment. That's all. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Chris, Dan, you guys want to close with anything?
Well, I would just say that, for those who are looking for a Santa, just because you have a white beard and a red suit doesn't make you a Santa.
Mm-hmm.
You want to find people who take it seriously, who, and I try to kind of instill this to the new Santas, that, we have a responsibility as Santa. This is not, we're talking about a legend that's thousands of years old. If you go all the way back to St. Nicholas, you know, it's a very important role we play, and we have to represent Santa in a professional way and a careful way. And, you know, I get too many calls from people who will say, oh, well, I'm looking for a new Santa. The guy who showed up last year was drunk and he didn't look the part. He didn't know how to deal with kids. I mean, the Santas that we're talking about, and we talked about training early on, I mean, we do training all through the year. Santa camp is just one aspect of it. And
There should be a
we're
Claus patrol for guys who do that.
Right, yeah. I mean, and so we're, you know, those of us who do it are taking it professionally and are serious about it. But you also have to be willing to pay for a good Santa. Because as Howie said, you know, we're investing a lot of money. I mean, just our insurance alone and our background checks and stuff.
Right.
And so if you're out looking for a Santa, you know, a couple of questions you should ask. Do you carry insurance? Do you have a background check? What training have you gone through? And look at some pictures and see, do they look like Santa or not? Because there are a lot of people out there who are happy to go out and do it for, you know, $50, $25 to go do an hour visit. But as they say, you get what you pay for.
Right.
You know? I mean, that's a lot of it. Yeah.
Chris, did you have anything you wanted to close with? Or do you think?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, I want to thank you. What?
No, I was just saying I've got to get out of here, guys. So I'll let you do your closing remarks.
Well, the truth is, I think that we're pretty much. I think that was my last question. What do you hope people get out from Santa? So we made it just in time. So Santa Chris,
Excellent.
Santa Dan, Santa Howie, I want to thank you very much for joining us here. And New England Santa Society has a Facebook page, right?
We have a Facebook page, yes.
Yeah, you guys should check out NESS on Facebook. Thank you all for being here at this special Santa edition of the Actors Roundtable. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks.